We will start this morning off with Morgan State University head coach Fred Farrier. Morgan State fell to North Carolina A&T State this past weekend, and we'll have a bye on this upcoming weekend. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. Coach, recap last weekend's game versus North Carolina A&T State, and just talk about the positive that you picked up from watching the film.
I think anytime you come away with another loss, the fourth consecutive loss for us starting the season, it's difficult to find a lot of positives. But I think, there are some things that we can build on as we head into the bye week. We're going to get some guys back healthy who were out last week and some guys who were kind of limited throughout the week of practice. So, there are some things we did a little bit better. We moved the ball a little bit better offensively. We finally got in the end zone and scored some points. And, our quarterback, even though he had a few interceptions, still had his most passing yards for us since he's been here and really for his career in one single game. And that's in a situation where he still had 4 or 5 drop passes on the part of guys on the receiving end of some of those passes. So, we got to find a way to get our run game going. But the bye week comes at a much-needed time for us, where we'll get some guys back healthy, get some guys back at practice, and get them reacclimated to being able to get out and help our football team. Make no mistake about it, North Carolina A&T is a really good football team. They got some really good players, and they did a really good job of getting those guys coached up and prepared to play in the game against us. And, we've got to make sure our guys are ready to go and we get healthy as we head into this bye week.
And speaking of the bye week, you mentioned getting some guys healthy, and also you may get some guys back. Just talk about trying to focus on getting them ready to go for your next game as you have South Carolina State coming up.
That's a big deal for us right now. Mentality and our mindset is really huge for me and my coaching staff right now. We got to find a way, sitting here at 0-4, to get our guys excited about coming to practice. Coming into the season, we felt like we had a really good football team. We felt like we would be able to make some noise in the MEAC, and we still have a lot of those opportunities in front of us. And, we've had some team meetings and staff meetings where we talked about the opportunities in front of us. And, this game coming up against South Carolina State in 2 weeks is going to provide a great opportunity for us to get back on track and doing some of the things that we felt like we could do early in the season. The last 2 teams that we played were really good football teams, a team out of the Big Ten and North Carolina A&T, who beat an FBS opponent out of Conference USA the week before they played us. So those are 2 really tough games. And, when you start 4 tough games in a row, 2 CAA opponents, and then a team out of the Big Ten, and then arguably the best or one of the best teams in the MEAC right to start out your season, that's a difficult road to start out. And, I think a lot of teams, in our conference would be sitting in similar situations if those are the first 4 games that you start out with. But, it is what it is. We're excited about the remainder of our season. We're excited about getting an opportunity to play against South Carolina State. That's a game where it means a lot to our players. It means a lot to our fans. So, this week in the bye week is going to give us an opportunity to get a couple extra looks at South Carolina State. We'll hit the practice field today. Our guys are in the weight room, and our guys are doing the things that's going to help us get back healthy and get back refocused on the game. And we'll go down there with some excitement, some enthusiasm, and our guys will come out, play hard, and play excited, and hopefully put us in a position to win. These next 10 days or so, it's going to give us a great opportunity to just continue to try to dot some I's and cross some T's and get better at some of the small things that we're doing. The bye week provides an opportunity for us to kind of get back to fundamentals, do some of the small things, and get back to just playing football at the purest sense of it, and just blocking, tackling, running, and catching. And we've got to get back to some of those things which, you get caught up in scheme and all that kind of stuff. And, the bye week is going to provide an opportunity for us to get back to basics. So this is going to comes at a great time for us as we get ready to head into the bulk of the MEAC schedule, and it's well needed.
And, Coach, looking back at last week's game, going into the halftime break, the score is 28-0, and you're threatening to score. But obviously the interception was returned for a touchdown and put more points on the board for A&T. But then he came out they gave the second half and had 83-yard touchdowns. Can you just talk about those 14 points, which could possibly turn the tide of the game during that stretch?
Yeah, that's a big swing for us right there at the end of the second quarter. You know, we got some momentum and we moved the ball down the field, and you got an opportunity to score right before the half and kind of make it a 28-7 game. You know, at the end of that game, it's 49-17, but we throw 2 pick sixes for touchdowns, and you know that's 14 points right there. So, you know, in football, you really can't get into the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But we moved the ball fairly decent in the game. You take the 2 pick sixes off the board, you're looking at a 35-17 game, and if we're able to punch in the score in the second quarter, you're talking about a 35-24 game, and one score puts you right in the middle of that game. So there's some things that we got to do better. We got to find a way to not turn the ball over. Our turnover to our interception to touchdown pass ratio right now is horrendous, and we got to get that corrected. And we're going to get some receivers back healthy, some guys that will give us a little bit better opportunity to put that stat kind of on a more positive side. But there's some things that we got to do better. We can't keep turning the ball over. That's been something that's been a big Achilles heel for us so far this season. We turned the ball over multiple times in each game, and we're not capitalizing when we get turnovers on our defensive side by scoring points and kind of neutralizing some of those points we're giving up with our turnovers. You know, our team just has to find a way to get back to the positives, get back to the basics. You know, this bye week is going to give us a great opportunity to do that. You know, we talk about momentum swings and momentum shifts and that type of thing, and that interception before the half was a big momentum shift. Our guys were excited moving the ball down the field, and you punch that in, and then you come out in the second half and you score on your first drive. It's a 28-14 game, and you feel like you got a chance. So, you know, we got to be able to take advantage of the momentum being in our favor. We've got to be able to punch those balls in the end zone, and we've got to be able to, you know, slow some people down defensively so that we can be in these games and have a chance to win in the fourth quarter.
Coach, talk about the play of Rico Kennedy. Had another solid game, had 10 tackles and a tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and a sack. So just talk about his play on the defensive side of the ball.
Rico has been a very positive force for us so far this season. You know, he's been a pleasant surprise. He's come up with a bunch of tackles for loss and sacks. You know, and in those instances, he's really paying attention to detail and doing his job and not getting caught up, you know, in the run fakes and the play action fakes and that type of thing, and has been able to make some tackles in the backfield when a quarterback has tried to boot out or reverses or come back at him. He's done a really good job so far. We expect to see him continue to develop, you know, at that position, become a leader for us defensively, and really become more consistent throughout the course of the game. He's making some big plays, you know, at different times of the game, but we got to find a way to get him as a consistent player on every down, first, second, and third down, you know, in all phases of the game defensively, so that he can continue to help our defense get better. But he's done really good so far. He's had a great start to the season, and we look forward to him continuing to develop and continue to become a more dominant player for our defense.
And also the growth of your quarterback, Elijah Staley. Like you said, the stats may not show it, but just watching him, he has a very live arm, and just a matter of time before he gets it all. So just talk about his growth from the first game to what you've seen now.
Yeah, you know, I think he did a good job on Saturday. You know, everybody sees the interceptions, but at the end of the day, you know, when we go back and figure out exactly what happened, a couple of those interceptions are really not his fault. We run some bad routes and we do some things that, you know, in other areas on the field, guys are not supposed to be doing, which brings people into the play that really shouldn't even be there. So, you know, 2 of those interceptions, especially the 2 that got returned for touchdowns, you know, we've got to clean some stuff up with our route running and some other guys on those plays, because those are timing throws where that ball has got to be out and thrown to a spot, and you got guys who got to clear out, and you got guys who have another responsibility to ensure that their teammate can get open and catch the ball. And when we got guys not taking care of their jobs and their responsibilities, you get other people involved in the play who shouldn't even be there. So as we continue to get everybody else to just understand how to better do their job, I think our passing game is going to be better. But, we tried to simplify some things for Eli. He was able to make some throws down the field. He was able to be more efficient with the ball. And, again, he had a career day for us, in terms of passing yards, and still had 6 drop passes. So his numbers statistically should have been even better, and you get 4 or 5 more of those catches. You're talking about 4 or 5 more first downs, extending drives, and putting your team in a position to score points and get in the end zone. So, we're going to continue to work with him and try to develop him and get him to where we think he can be, one of, if not the best quarterbacks in this league to help us be in a position to win games as we continue throughout the rest of this season.
Our second call this morning comes from Tallahassee, Florida, as we talk to third-year Florida A&M head coach Alex Wood. The Rattlers won a thriller over Savannah State last weekend and returns to the field Thursday night for a nationally televised ESPNU contest versus North Carolina Central. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing, Coach?
Good, good.
Last week's game versus Savannah State was similar to the matchup that you had in Tallahassee. So just talk about the last week's performance, which went down to the wire against the Tigers.
Yeah, Savannah has played us tough, the last couple of years, and I think throughout the series, if I'm not mistaken. But it's always a tough game to play and win, and we feel good about the win. Obviously, our players were able to come out of the game, relatively healthy, so that's a good thing as well. But also we had some good play, from guys defensively. Jules Dornerville did a nice job in that goal line stand aspect of the game, defending 2 passes. And then, our front 7 was able to do a good job in not allowing them to run the ball in that situation. And like you said, the game ended very similarly last year, where I don't know if they were quite as close or as tight to the goal line as they were this year, but they were knocking on the door, and we were able to intercept and turn the ball over and win that game. So in both of those games, obviously hard-fought games by both teams, and we feel really good about coming out with a win, and that's kind of where it's at.
You have a short week ahead of you as you prepare to host North Carolina Central on Thursday. And last year, that was another tight game against the Eagles. So just talk about what you've seen on film from this year's edition of North Carolina Central.
Obviously they're averaging about 29 points a game right now, and that's pretty good. And we're not. So we've got to step it up to increase our point production to have the opportunity that we're looking for to win this game. They've got good personnel. They play at a high tempo. They play very spirited style of play, obviously, and again, they've got a good team, and we're happy to have them at home. Hopefully that helps us, but we look forward to our players playing hard and playing well. Making sure that we play hard, we play smart, and we play as physical as we can possibly play, and score enough points to win the game.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, to queue up for a question, please press 1-4 on your telephone keypad. There are no questions on the phone line.
Coach, we will talk about, you've had a Thursday night game already this year when you traveled to Arkansas. So just talk about your Thursday preparation in terms of having a short week.
Yeah, you've got to put a lot of prep into obviously one less day of preparation, and one thing we want to make sure we do is make sure our players are as fresh as they can possibly be during this time. So obviously it doesn't allow you to really expand what you did a week ago. Not much, but you have to some degree, but not much in terms of your planning and your strategy, offense, defense, and special teams. But I think the most important thing, once again, is that they're fresh and that they know exactly what needs to be done from an alignment and assignment standpoint in order to give you the best chance to win on Thursday, and just staying focused on what they have to do.
And last week you had a 100-yard rusher, you nearly had a 100-yard receiver, and your defense forced 3 sacks. Just talk about your team's overall play on those sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's encouraging. That's good to have. Obviously players competing at that level. Rushing for 100, sacking the quarterback, disrupting the other offense's rhythm, and not allowing them to score more than 14 points. That's always good. We will take that performance against any team, and really you're going to have positive results. But yeah, no, we're excited about that, and you can't have a 100-yard rusher without doing a good job in the offensive line. And obviously, our players were able to sustain some blocks and control the line of scrimmage to the point to where we could rush for 100 and then also pass protect, so we could throw for a couple of touchdowns, and then also control the tempo of the game a little bit, especially in the first and third quarters with the passing game. So those were all positive things, as well as having pretty good field position at times, from our kicking game. We were disappointed that we had a couple of explosive plays, one on offense called back, and then one punt return called back, which probably would have changed the complexion and the competitiveness of the game if those would have stood, because they would have put us in position to score more points.
And with Central coming into town on Thursday, and the game is live on ESPNU, just talk about the importance of having a good showing, first, obviously, for the nation to see, but then also in where this game can take you in towards of your goal of trying to capture MEAC championship.
Yeah, no, all those things are important. Obviously, Ryan, is that when you're having a chance to showcase, your program and your players, and the job that you're doing, with your football program and your team, that's important. That you play competitively, you play, with good sportsmanship, you play hard, you look crisp, you look sharp, you look like you know what you're doing. That's the objective, and then win the game to boot. That's what we're trying to get done, and to do it at home is really important, obviously, in front of your home crowd. So those things are all, a part of, the game preparation. It's all part of, trying to be successful. And really, at the end of the day, it's another conference game, and like you talked about, in order to get closer to being relevant and competitive for MEAC championship, you got to win this game. So that's also on our minds and part of, what our thought process is going into this.
And lastly, if I can go back to the game this past week, on that last stand late in the game, you basically survived the onslaught by Savannah State. You had a player, DJ Phillips, came up with several plays at the end, and just talk about what he's done for your defense and what is his role in terms of his position.
Yeah, actually it wasn't DJ Phillips. We want to make sure that's squared away, because DJ's a redshirt freshman quarterback, and he had, and make sure this is for the record, he ain't played a down. He ain't played no football. We have double numbers, and sometimes you have to distinguish who's in that double numbers. He's not a defensive player for us. And I think you're talking about Jules Dorneville. And Jules is actually a senior. He's a cornerback, and he made some key plays in that stand. He defended 2 passes, if I'm not mistaken. That's who you may be referencing.
Yes, sir. It was him, but I'm glad when you said the double numbers, so we'll make sure to take care of that. So just lastly, we'll just bring up Jules and what he's done for your defense this year.
Yeah, Jules made a big play, also, a couple weeks ago, when we played Tennessee State as well. Obviously it wasn't a winning effort as a team, but he made some key plays in that game as well. He plays special teams for us. He contributes there. And so he's, he's a a significant player, in the scheme of things for our program.
Next up, we have third-year Bethune-Cookman head coach Terry Sims. The Wildcats fell to Howard this past weekend and will return home for the first time this season to play Savannah State on Saturday. Good morning, Coach. How you doing? Coach Sims, good morning.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Coach, after watching the film of last week's game, recap from what you've seen and what were some of the positives that came out of the game last week?
Well, after watching the tape, first and foremost, we have to look at all of our missed opportunities, and I don't want to say that without saying that, Coach London and his staff, they did a great job preparing their team, and those guys were ready to play football. But watching our film and watching our team, we had a lot of opportunities that we just did not take advantage of. And the game went down to the wire, and, I won't get into everything that happened at the end of the game. There are some things that were in question, but, whatever it may be, the calls were made, and they ended up scoring and winning the football game. So we just did not take advantage of the opportunities we had in that football game on Saturday.
And heading in this week, obviously you play a Savannah State team that's coming off an emotional loss. But the good thing is you're at home for the first time this year. So just talk about finally being able to prepare to play in your home stadium after 4 consecutive weeks of travel.
It's great. It's a relief to finally be off the road and have an opportunity to play at home in front of our fans and, have our guys kind of settle in and not be in trouble mode. So it's great for us. I think it'll be a great atmosphere, and it'll be good for our football team. It'll be good for our psyche. It'll be good for our fans to finally be able to come out and watch us play in person.
And talk about Savannah State, Coach, and what you've seen from your film preparation at this point.
Well, you see a football team that is continuing to improve, and you look at them from last year, and they were not a bad football team last year, and they beat us last year. So they're constantly improving. When you look at all 3 phases of the game, you look at the positions that they've gone out and recruited, and they have some guys that are actually coming up and making plays, and you look at the O-line. Those guys are blocking now. The defensive line, they're moving other folks' offensive line out of the way. So you can't look past these guys, and you can't say they're just a okay football team. It's a good football team, and they had an opportunity on Saturday when you really look at the last 2 plays of the football game. They had an opportunity to win that game, and the coin just didn't roll their way. But I really am impressed with what I see on film from them, and the job that Coach Raeburn and his staff has done with this football team, and we're excited to have them come in here because it's going to be a good matchup. I do believe that, and it's going to be a hard-fought football game.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, please press 1-4 to queue up for a question. We do have a question from the line of Luck Williams, Black College. Please go ahead.
Black College Sports Page, thanks. Coach, I hope this doesn't relate to a call in terms of a referee's call. I don't want to get you in trouble as it relates to that whole.
I'm not going to get in trouble either, Lou. That's why I just go ahead and ask it, and we'll talk it through.
Okay, no, what I want to talk about is the decision you made to go for it in that last drive, or that next to the last drive before they scored. I think you were somewhere near the 50-yard line. I would assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you thought if you made that first down, basically the game is pretty much over, because I think they were out of timeouts. But tell me what went into the whole idea of going for that one on fourth down.
Well, any coach will tell you that you prepare for these situations all week long, and that's a situation that we prepare for every week. And I have faith in my offensive line that we have been moving the ball pretty good all day, and we were thinking exactly that. If we got that one first down, we could run the clock out, and that was the thought process at the time. And we'll never just put anything on a kid or a play call or whatever. It didn't happen for us at that point in time. And we have to go out in those situations and stop them on defense. And again, that didn't happen, and they end up winning the football game.
It's not even worth asking the question about, do you regret the decision if you had to do it over again? Obviously,
Would I punt the ball?
Yeah, these are the kind of decisions that head coaches have to make all the time. I'm just saying, did you?
I don't think I would make a different decision, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if we had gotten that half a yard. So it's 6 or half a dozen. It's always another side to the coin. But I like my guys, and I'm gonna go with my guys, more times than not. I went back and forth, and we actually started to just call a timeout and talk about it. But the play that we ran, it was a play that we were trying to go hurry up and kind of catch them off a little bit, and it just didn't work with one of our guys not completing his assignment. But it happens. And we got to put that one away and move on to Savannah State.
If I can ask this, Coach, how different is this Howard team from the teams that you've played in the past? Or what's different about it? Any particular thing you think was different about it?
Well, when you look at it, we knew that they had a good running back, which I think we did a decent job on him. He did not get 100 yards, but the quarterback did. And I think that was the difference in the football game. We had a couple guys not being gap sound. They did not have gap integrity, and he slipped through some cracks and gained a lot of positive yards in critical situations. So the difference, I think, is the quarterback with his ability to run the football. And they're trying to be a physical football team. So when you look at these guys on film, and then when you play them in person, they're prepared. And you can tell they're coached, they're well coached, they're organized, and they play hard. So I like I said earlier, I can take nothing away from this team. We just did not execute when we needed to, and that's something that we have to fix here. And that started on Sunday when we got back. But yeah, they're a different team, and hats off to Coach London and his staff for putting in the work and doing what they need to do to get those guys to the level that they are right now.
We will now head to Washington, D.C. for our next call as first-year Howard University head coach Mike London joins us. The Bison defeated Bethune-Cookman this past Saturday and are off this weekend. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning to everybody.
Coach, talk about last weekend's win versus Bethune-Cookman as your team kept fighting until the final whistle.
Yeah, very, very, very proud of the tremendous effort by the team, displayed by the team, coaches. This is the fourth game in a row that in the fourth quarter that we've really kind of played well enough to score, well enough to continue and kind of find a way, to improve as the game has gone on. So Coach Sims, has got a very good football team. And you look at it, they played 2 FBS teams, Miami and FAU, and then a good team from Southeast Louisiana. And so we knew it was going to be a very, very tough contest because of their quarterback and their assortment of skill position players that they have. So it just came down to in the end making plays and a guy having Kalen Newton who rushed for 154 yards and Anthony Filial who got 97 yards and 3 yards short from 100, but at the same time was very productive. So we're fortunate to come out with a win. Our fan base showed up. It was great to see people in the stands and the students that showed up came out. And now we went to an off week here, an open week where we have a chance to do some things to get ourselves healthy and also make sure we try to correct those things that can help us going down the stretch, because with a team like NC Central coming in, not this week but the following week, we're going to need to play our best football game.
And speaking of the bye week, you've had 3 long weeks of travel, and then you had an emotional home win to open up MEAC play. So can you expound as much as you can about what will you do to make sure everyone gets healthy during that bye week, and also to look at the opponent that's coming up in 2 weeks?
Yeah, this is a time when your strength and conditioning coach, your trainers, and all of the chiropractors, massage therapists, everybody that has to deal with the health and the recovery part is going to be critical. We playing those now having been in 4 games, it's important that the rest and recovery part takes place. We got some guys that are banged up a little bit because of the physical style of play that we play, and that what's happened over the last 4 games. We self-scout ourselves to see some of the things that we're doing to make sure that we're on point with how we call the game, how we implement our game plans. And we developed the players that maybe haven't gotten a whole lot of reps thus far. So a lot of guys that might have been on special teams. We played about 18 freshmen, so give them the opportunity to, we talk about first things first, and that's the fundamentals of playing the game. So give them more dedicated time. Coaches were out on the road recruiting. They're out on the road recruiting now. That's been going well for us. So there's a bunch of things that are going on, even though you have an open week, that to get yourself better, to continue to brand yourself out there amongst the high school coaches and the programs throughout the country. And ultimately, get ready for, like I said, a very good football team that happens to be playing this week. And we just got to take care of ourselves before we start our game preparation for NC Central.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, please press 1-4. We do have a question from the line. Trevin Jones, Howard University. Please go ahead.
Coach London, good morning to you, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Coach, is this the perfect time, in your estimation, as far as getting a bye week, right? I guess after the first conference game and before the meat of the conference competition can start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, sometimes midway through the season, you'd like to have those opportunities. Sometimes, you have them after you play a couple FBS teams, and we've done that now. We played 2 FBS teams, and so I believe that at this point it gives us a chance to get guys healed up, but also gives us a chance to self-scout ourselves and develop players that are just a play away from going in the game. So, it's been done, different ways. You look at it. I've been on teams where you've had a bye week towards the latter part of the season. But I think for us, your question is it the perfect time? For us right now, because of the guys that are injured a little bit and need to get some time to get healed, I think it's a perfect time for us as we go into our bye week and into our preparation for NC Central.
And, Coach, if I may, in my opinion, personally, you've had an impressive season thus far. And what is it that you've learned about the Bison, and has anything about their performance and progress as far as growth is concerned surprised you?
As I began, I talked about the last 4 games that we played, and particularly the fourth quarter of the games that we've been in. Even though the Richmond game, they scored a lot of points, we scored a couple touchdowns, we made some progress, and no one quit. And I believe what I see is a team that's really resilient. And so it was interesting that the last drive of the game against Bethune-Cookman, Gerald Wright, one of our offensive linemen. We practiced situational football, and I was proud of the fact that we scored at the end of the half and we scored at the end of the game. And we practiced those things. And Gerald, in the huddle with no timeout, said, "Hey, Coach, we've been here before." So it's a confidence is gained through demonstrated performance. And so when you practice those things, sometimes they come to fruition. And we're just so lucky to have the opportunity to drive the field and score at the very end. But that's something that you practice and recognized by a player like Gerald, and guys understand that it does matter. Situational football, all those things matter. So I've learned about this team being resilient, and we talk about mission possible and all those things. And the last thing, like I said, is just to see the student body and people that were there. I mean, it was a nice. Our players commented about that. So we just got to continue to build. Again, it's 4 games. And we have a chance to heal up, rest up, and then get ready for, again, it doesn't get any easier because Central's a very, very good football team, but, we have time to prepare for them.
And my last question, Coach, I know Central is 2 weeks away, but it's still the next opponent. Is there anything that you see that really stands out in your mind about this Eagles attack?
Well, Coach Mack has done a fantastic job with that program. They're strong from all elements, offense, defense, special teams, and they're very well coached. And that's the reason why over the years that they've been successful down there. They played championship games. So, it's important to us that, again, like I said, a self-scouting part of it and look at the who and the what for us is going to be critical. They travel well because I'm quite sure. I mean, again, this is, they have a game that they're playing this week, but their fans follow them and travel them well with them. So it'll be important that that we also fill Green Stadium with Bison all over the place. So, but again, the MEAC is I've said it before at the very beginning. We've had all these media days that these teams in the MEAC are good football teams that have good players, that have good coaches, and you see that week in and week out. And so, our job now is to just to press a reset button to get ready for another part of the season that's going to be competitive.
Thank you for your time, Coach. Always appreciate you.
Thank you.
We have a question from the line of Luke Williams of Black College. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Trevin kind of stole my question about what has surprised you, Coach London. First of all, congratulations on the win. But I said, and I've told guys around the league in the press box, whatnot, that you kind of tipped your hand in the preseason when you said that Kalen Newton was perhaps better than you thought he was. When I say tipped your hand, let us know that maybe we were looking at something special. Talk about what he has shown you, what he showed you then that made you say that kind of thing, and what he's shown you now over these first 4 games.
Yeah, when you look at it, we started talking before. I mean, we had Kalen Johnson was a quarterback that played here a lot, started a lot of games. His level of play, had elevated. We had a transfer, Lamar Williams, who was in high school, he was a Maryland State Player of the Year. He comes in, and his play elevates the quarterback play. Jason Collins was a quarterback last year. We moved him receiver, and he's had some big games and big catches for us. So Kalen was able to come in as a second semester freshman, so he was able to go through spring practice. And so you got 3 guys that are that played the position that were recognized as being pretty good at with the high schools they were at, that elevated their play. The thing with Kalen, you categorize this as an RPO, run play action, type of offense, and just right now his ability to run the ball, after making his reads and things like that, has shown itself. I had 154 yards rushing, and I believe there was a couple physical runs where he ran over some guys. So as long as he keeps continuing to improve, with the reads and the things that we're asking him to do, and as long as Kalen Johnson and Lamar Williams, John Patricia keep practicing it the way that they do, knowing that, not looking over your shoulder, but there's an expectation of execution. And that's the thing we need to get done here as we get ready to go into this bye week before we play Central. So I would say that he's raised his level because he knows that there's an expectation at that position. You touch the ball 100% of the time, and it matters what happens to it. So, hats off to him thus far.
Third-year Norfolk State University head coach Latrell Scott now joins us. The Spartans defeated Delaware State 17-7 in his MEAC opener last week and are off this weekend. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. How about yourself?
I'm fine. Coach, talk about last week's game at Delaware State as your team pulled out a tough win down the stretch.
Well, I thought it was good to see our kids battle. A lot of people have probably written our football team off, after our loss to James Madison, but our kids got back into conference play, got back in and refocused and went to, play a much improved Delaware State football team. Kenny's done a tremendous job with those guys, and, we had to make some plays to be able to get out of there. But again, very, very proud of our effort on both sides of the ball.
And talk about the play of your defense in the fourth quarter as they picked off that pass in the end zone and also forced a turnover down to seal the win.
Well, with the exception of, the last two quarters at James Madison, our defense has played well all season long. The guys have gotten turnovers. We've won the turnover battle each week in every game that we've played. So we've just got to continue to keep those guys playing and getting pass rush. And, when you can get sacks and you can get turnovers, it definitely helps a young offensive football team.
And then you have a bye weekend coming up and coming off your conference opener win. Just talk about the confidence that'll provide your young team, especially on offense, as you rest and recover.
Well, I think it's much better to go into a bye week, having had some success. If you're a 0-4 football team, going into a bye week, you kind of wonder where you are. I think our kids, do have some motivation. We'll actually get a few guys back that hadn't played the last couple of weeks. And, we're going to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Give the guys some time off. At the end of the weekend, and come back and be ready to go on Sunday.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Once again, please press 1-4 to queue up for a question. We do have a question from the line of Luke Williams, Black College. Please go ahead.
Black College Sports Page, Luke Williams. Hey, Coach, congratulations on the win. 46 passes. That's a little more than I would think you would like. Could you talk about Pough, Juwan Carter throwing it 46 times?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of run pass options in there. And so the numbers are kind of skewed, and we didn't throw the ball downfield 46 times. It's a lot of one-step screens and just getting the ball out of his hands right away. I think that's going to be the identity of our football team. We don't by any stretch think we're going to throw the ball 46 times a game and be successful. But, if we can throw 3, 4, 5-yard passes and turn those into 15, 20-yard games, and then we'll continue to do that. But, we're not trying to be, Steve Spurrier or anything by that stretch.
But I would have to assume that you were pleased with the way that he played 28 for 46 for almost 300 yards.
He's definitely improving. He probably left another, 50 or 60 yards out there, missed some reads. He made some bad throws, but again, to be an 18-year-old freshman, just a few months removed from high school football, I think he's doing a tremendous job for us. He's got a calm pocket presence. He's emerging as one of the leaders on the team. And when he does make mistakes, he doesn't get rattled. And I don't think you can ask for anything more from a young quarterback.
What were some of the other things that contributed to you guys getting the win? What other areas? I saw Chris Lee got a couple of sacks. What about just in terms of the overall game, why you were able to come out with the win?
Well, I think you get back into the conference. You're playing like opponents. You go back to week one, we didn't play well enough to win, and we lost. The last 2 weeks we played, top-notch opponents, in the FCS, and, we got back into the conference and just played better, and I think you have to credit our team and our staff for sticking together, Luke. A lot of people have written these kids off. We had one person say we wouldn't win a game all year, which I think, is a testament to our kids. We know what we have in our locker room and what we have as a team, and, it's good to be able to go up there and get a win and have some confidence going into the bye week.
We do have a question from the line of Trevin Jones, Howard University. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Scott, how you doing, Coach?
Hey, Trevin, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Hey, Coach, tough part of the first part of the season, four tough opponents, obviously. What's the mindset of the Spartans as you get ready to get into the meat of conference play?
Well, they're ready to go. Obviously, like I said, I mean, winning a football game solves a lot of problems, but we know that we're not nearly, where we need to be able to be competitive in our conference. So we're able to get a win and, survive some mistakes. Delaware State, committed some penalties, had a few touchdowns called back, so that could have been a very different football game. But again, our guys battled. They found a way to win, and we're going to use this bye week as this preparation time to get our young kids better, and to be ready for Florida A&M in 2 weeks. I mean, Coach Wood has done a tremendous job turning that program around. A lot of talented football players down there, and they're playing good football right now.
And how impressed are you with the growth of your team? Are they? I wouldn't say on par because of the record. I understand that, but as far as the growth that you want to see out of your young team, how far along are they, and how impressed are you with them?
Well, to address our record, we want to know in the MEAC, and really nothing else matters. So I think as long as we're competitive in our conference, I'm okay. But I do think the guys are growing. We hadn't scored an offensive touchdown. The guys scored 2 touchdowns, probably left 2 more out there on the field. So there's growth and maturation on offense. On defense, I think the kids have played well all season long, with the exception of the second half versus James Madison. So we'll just continue to stay together and grow and take this thing as far as we can take it.
We're now joined by third-year Delaware State head coach Kenny Carter. Delaware State fell to Norfolk State last weekend and has a bye weekend on Saturday. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
I'm fine. Coach, talk about last week's game versus Norfolk State as the opportunities were there for your team late in the fourth quarter.
Oh, there's opportunities before that. We had 14 points taken off the board just because of 2 penalties. They said our offensive lineman was lined up in the backfield, and we hit a corner route for a touchdown, and then we ran a kickoff return back for a touchdown. They said we had a block in the back. So you make mistakes like that. Whether they were, whether they weren't, that's neither here nor there. The foul was called, and we live with it. But that's 14 points that comes off the board. That's the difference in the ball game. Our defense held them to 58 yards rushing, but Coach Scott and his staff did a good job of throwing the ball to locations and creating situations where they could just matriculate the ball down the field in a good way, and they come out with the win.
And coming off a contest which obviously was emotional, and then you're heading to a bye week, just talk about what do you focus on heading into this bye week, and how quickly do you put aside last week's game?
Oh, we put it away immediately. I mean, we watched the film and put closure to it. We treated it just like a normal Sunday as if we were playing a game this weekend. We'll do a couple things this week to get a couple guys back healthy. But and I'll tell you one thing that I've done, just because of our situation being a little bit different, is I've taken each position group and I have breakfast, dinner for the next 4 days with each position group, just to spend time with them to make sure that they feel like they have a voice, because our spirits are tremendously high. The kids get it. They know that we're close and that we're losing games, not because we're just getting outright beat. It's just because we're making mistakes and we're not capitalizing on opportunities that we gain through our play. And so you sit there and it can be a little bit frustrating for sure, especially when you come off the season that we had last year and you roll into this. But they see the big picture, so it's a matter of getting it all put together and finishing it off.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Please press 1-4 if you have a question. We have a question from Luke Williams, Black College. Please go ahead.
Black College Sports Page. Hey, Coach, how are you today?
I'm good, Luke. You keep getting them on that. They don't want to get that right, huh?
That's all right. No problem. No problem. Coach, and I don't know, I haven't read, and maybe I should, and I probably will read the thing related to speaking about penalties. You're not allowed to speak about penalties at all, or just not allowed to criticize the officials?
You cannot criticize the officials, from what I understand it. Ryan can give more clarity on that than I can, but that's how I understand it.
So, because you made reference to two things that were called back, you know, blocks in the back these days are probably as common as anything on punt returns. And you said another one was called back. I think I forgot what you said. Another touchdown was called back.
We had two. We actually had two that were called back. 14 points called back off of penalties. You know, and we respect what happens. If they say that's the foul, then that's the foul. It is what it is. The only point I bring up is that, you know, you have to make sure that your guys don't put your team in that situation. So, you know, line up on the ball like you're supposed to. Make sure that you're up on the ball like you're supposed to. And if it's close, do not hit somebody. You know, don't block somebody in the back, or don't, you know, try to make sure that, you know, you don't put yourself in that position. You know, but
what was the other one called back? You mentioned it, but what was the other one called back?
Kickoff return for a touchdown, and then we threw a touchdown pass off a smash route.
And it was called back for what?
For those penalties.
I'm saying one of them was
kickoff return, and when we lined up off the ball, they said we had too many off the line of scrimmage.
Now, my question is, and this is, again, I don't want to get you in trouble about criticizing the officials, but if you have a question about a particular call like that, what is the procedure? That you just send the film in to the conference office, or to the supervisor?
Their policy, their procedures to what we do. We have a great system. The head of officials does a great job with communicating with the coaches and what we need to do to make sure that those things are addressed and looked at. And then if there was a mistake, then they address it and we move forward. Obviously, it doesn't change the outcome of the game. My only point is that, you know, as coaches and as players, you cannot allow fouls to be the thing that takes points off the board and prevents you from winning games. You know, that's a frustrating part of it, especially if the result, the end of the specific play that the foul is made, ends up being a touchdown. That's tough. That's tough. But it's not the officials' fault. They have to do their job. It's our fault to make sure that you know, we don't let things like that happen. You know, but we are human.
You said your team is still upbeat, and you said
very much so.
You said because they understand that they're not far off from perhaps getting a win, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they get it. They get it. They know. You watch. Just if you just watch our games, just watch us play any game. We could very easily be 3-1 right now. You know, with West Virginia, they just beat us. You know, we played really well. But I mean, you hold a team to 58 yards rushing. You should feel pretty good about it. And you know, we had 21 plus points that we could have put on the board, but we didn't because of mistakes that we made. So they know it's right there. And there's several times throughout the game that it comes down to one block or the ball carrier making a play. We had a wide open guy running right down the middle of the field, and the quarterback throws the ball behind him, the tight end on a seam route. You know, so it's little things. But you know, Norfolk, they go off a zone read pop pass and throw it 3 times for first downs to continue drives. You know, so it's little things like that you have to continue to make sure that you stay detailed, but they see it. But you just have to overcome that. It'd be one thing if you're losing games just because you're not good enough and you can't get it done. But those are the things when you're young like we are, with 85% freshmen and sophomores, that you just, a mature, experienced team doesn't make those mistakes.
Got you, Coach. Good luck on your week off and as you go forward.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
We also have a question from the line of Trevin Jones with Howard. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how you doing today, Coach?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. Coach, having a bye week, what do you work on moving forward as you prepare for your next opponent?
We will go twofold. We treated as a staff, we treated it as if we were playing A&T this coming up weekend, and so that gets us ahead. And then we'll only have the game that they have against. I think they play South Carolina State this weekend. Is that right? We'll have the game against South Carolina State that we will add into our breakdown, and then we won't go as long, and because we have a couple guys that are banged up, obviously a little bit, and try to get them back healthy, and get our guys a little bit of downtime, a little bit more time in the classroom, but focus on fundamentals and getting back to fundamentals because we're still a very young football team. So getting back to the technique and different things with the offensive line and the DBs and just is everything, just all the, and then really because we played 4 games, this is the perfect time for self-scout to know what things have become habitual. So when people game plan you, that you can change that up a little bit so that you don't continue to get tendencies that are big tells for what you do offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game.
And Coach, I kind of got cut off, so I missed part of the answer. But our next question to you is this: you're talking about the confidence of your team, and you know that you could have easily been 3-1 at this point. Looking at the opponent that you just played, and then talking about the confidence of your team, where is the strength at this point of the season, and how comfortable are you with that?
The strength of our team?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I love how we're playing on defense right now. I think, especially against the run. I think we're, in fact, in the Hampton game, we had Hampton to 5 yards rushing at halftime, and we had Norfolk at 58 yards total rushing at the end of the game. They did a good job of getting the ball down the field like they needed to get down the field. So I think we're doing some really good things on defense. We need to do a little bit better job on third down in certain situations. But we've got more turnovers right now than we had the entire year last year. We're moving the ball. We're moving the ball on offense, but we still have to finish. And you got to score in the red zone. You got to score touchdowns in the red zone. You can't kick field goals. So those are the things that we're focusing on. I think we're doing a heck of a job in the kicking game. We're in the way I feel, a little bit deficient in kickoff coverage because we've allowed too many. We've allowed 2 long returns, but we've had explosion returns in every game as far as that, and then we've blocked 2 punts already. So, and our punter is fantastic. He's done a great job of pinning people inside the 20 and averaging somewhere around 46, 47 yards a punt. So there's a lot of positives that we're hanging our hat on, but our kids know that we can play so much better, and so that's what they harp on. They don't harp on the negative. They're more interested in accentuating the things that we do really well, addressing the things that we do bad, and taking it to another level.
Speaking of Savannah State, we are now joined by second-year head coach Erik Raeburn of the Tigers. The Tigers fell to Florida A&M last weekend and returns to the field this Saturday for a road matchup at Bethune-Cookman. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning.
Coach, similar to last year's contest at Florida A&M, this game came down to the wire once again. Just talk about the play of your team last week on your home field.
Yeah, obviously really proud of the effort that we got. Played much harder than we did, much better than we did the first 2 games of the season. So still made too many mistakes, but I thought we were much improved from the first 2 weeks for sure.
And speaking of improvement, just talk about where is your team from the first game when you traveled to Appalachian State to where they are now. I know you had to make some adjustments, so just talk about how do you see your team now compared to then?
Yeah, we had a more normal week, of preparation this past week, and obviously that helped. We weren't traveling all over the country trying to avoid the hurricane. So I think that helped our focus and preparation for sure. Obviously, we had to break in a new quarterback, true freshman, with T.J. Bell's injury, and I thought he, for his first college start, I thought he played
Raeburn, talk about that last drive that you had a chance to punch the ball in. Just talk about the play of obviously your quarterback you alluded to in Gibbons, but also the play of your running back in Uriah Oliver on that last drive.
Yeah, I thought both those guys really responded well to the situation and stayed poised, and we drove it all the way down and had second goal on the one. Unfortunately, Uriah had to come out of the game a couple plays earlier with an injury, and on second goal from the one, the other back we put in, got his wires crossed and went the wrong direction, and so Devon wasn't able to hand the ball off. He got stuck trying to run it himself, and then got hit and fumbled, and so we recovered it, but it was back like on the 4 or so yard line, and with only about 20 seconds, 16 to 20 seconds left, we felt like we had to throw it twice, and I thought the first one we had a chance at. He was a little high on his throw, and Kirkland couldn't quite pull it in, and their DB made a great play on the ball, but it was frustrating not to punch that one in and make the extra point and find a way to pull that game out for the win.
And this week, you traveled to Bethune-Cookman, and coming off an emotional contest last week, just talk about how quickly do you file away last week's game and focus on the Wildcats as you prepare to head to Daytona Beach?
Yeah, we try. We have the 24-hour rule. Whether we win or lose, we tell them, hey, you got 24 hours to celebrate the victory, or 24 hours to sulk with a loss, and then you gotta switch your focus to the next opponent. It's still early in the week, but it feels like our guys have done a pretty good job of that, and kind of moved on from the disappointment on Saturday, and trying to focus in on getting ready for this weekend's game.
And talk about the Wildcats from what you've seen on film.
Yeah, obviously I feel like they're really good defensively. They're just I particularly think they're strong in the secondary, not just at corner, but their one safety, 22. I thought he was one of the best safeties we played against last year, and not just on defense but on special teams as well. I think he's an incredible football player. But they're good at all three levels. Good defensive line, good linebacking core, and then I think they're exceptionally good in the secondary. So that'll be a real challenge for us. And then offensively, we kind of talked. We felt like one of the reasons we won that Bethune game last year is their quarterback was injured and didn't get to play. We really feel like he is one of the best, if not the best, returning starter in the conference at quarterback position, and I know he after getting injured early in the season, I know as the season wore on and he got back healthy, he put up big numbers pretty much every weekend. So we know it'll be a tough challenge for us, and obviously they're even better when they play at home, and so it'll be a difficult test for us, but we're excited for the opportunity to get out there and play again.
And speaking of your team, you had 242 yards rushing, and you mentioned early in the year that you had some youth on the offensive line. Could you talk about their play to have such an impressive number last week?
Yeah, we do have almost an entirely new offensive line. Most of them are freshmen, but they're young guys, inexperienced, but I feel like they're getting better and better. I think we're a little further ahead in our run blocking than we are in our pass protection, but which is part of the reason why we had a lot more rushing yards than we did passing yards this past weekend. But I think they're improving, and
lastly, obviously they had a big role in your third down conversion. You were 9 of 15 last week. Just talk about being able to extend drives with an impressive percentage.
Yeah, we obviously the thing we tried to point out to them was we had very few negative plays. So even when we didn't have a great play, we were able to get 2 or 3 yards. Just didn't have the number of penalties that we had against Montana. So we kept ourselves out of the the 3rd and 15s, the 3rd and 20s, which just kill you. So we were much better on 3rd down this week because we kept ourselves in more manageable 3rd down situations.
We will now talk with fourth-year Hampton University head coach Connell Maynor. Hampton is coming off an overtime loss to Monmouth this past weekend, and similar to several teams in the MEAC, they are off this weekend. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
Good morning, Ron. How you doing? Doing good.
I'm fine, Coach. Talk about last week's game as it went down to the wire, and just talk about some of the key situations that occurred late in the contest.
Well, Ron, we got off to a great start, man. We came out, scored the first possession, got a 3 and out, got the ball back and scored again. We made the extra point on the first one, and we was up 13-zip, got another stop, and then we just kind of, shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times. Quarterback dropped the ball and fumbled one, and we threw an interception. We snapped the ball over the center head, gave him a safety to tie the ball game up. You got to take your hats off to them for playing good, tough defense, but we kind of made some unforced errors and really cost us. So we got to get that cleaned up, and we got to be able to continue to play well for 60 minutes. We played well in some spots, and we got to clean it up and be able to play well for 60 minutes and limit our mistakes.
With preseason behind you, just talk about the growth you've seen from your team from game 1 to game 4, and also how do you feel about this team heading back into conference play?
Well, a lot of growth because the first game was so bad. We gave up 59 points, 59-zip, and special teams, defense, offense was all terrible. And so we improved on those. But the key is to continue to improve and stay healthy. When we do what we're supposed to do, we execute. We can execute at a high level. But like anybody else, when we don't, bad things happen, and you give up big plays and touchdowns, and you give up points, and you're not going to be a very good football team. So, we got to, like you said, we got the conference coming up. We got an open week, so we got to go back to the basics and really work that real hard and do some more conditioning and get ready for the stretch run and try to heal up a little bit before we make the stretch run the last 7 games.
Thank you, Coach. We will now open up the call for questions from the media.
Please press 1-4 to queue up for a question. We do have a question from the line of Dave Johnson, Daily Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Connell. Is there a certain area that you're going to focus mostly on during this bye week, or is it like as you may have said, going back to the basics in some ways?
Yeah, we guys can go back to the basics, and the football game is about tackling and catching and doing the little things, and that's what we're going to go back and focus on and make sure that we're disciplined and doing that stuff and working hard because when you have good technique, you're going to make tackles, catch them in the mouth, wrap up and twist, or you just throw that shoulder in there. We got to get away from throwing that shoulder in there. We got some guys throwing some shoulders around. We got a couple of shoulder injuries, so we got to go back to kissing them in the mouth, twisting and turning, taking them down, and taking care of the ball, keeping both hands on the ball at the quarterback position. And it's just going back to the basics, and that's what we got to work on. And we got 2 weeks to get it done, and then we're going to work on our condition a little bit, try to get in a little bit better shape, and be able to play at a high level for 60 minutes, not just 2 quarters or 1 quarter.
I know you're, from week to week, you're focused on who your next opponent is. I don't know how much you've had a chance to sort of pay attention to the league as a whole. How do you see the race at this point, and where do you think you guys stand in that?
Well, right now we tied for first. We 1-0.
Yep.
So we're there. Everybody has a chance right now. It's still early. The teams that has one loss, of course, has to depend on some help. But everybody that's undefeated control their own destiny, and we're just like those guys that's undefeated. We control our own destiny. If we win out, we got an excellent shot of winning it. I think a couple of teams we don't play, if they win out or we win out, then they have to go through some other stuff. But as far as just everybody that's undefeated control their own destiny. You just got to keep winning. So if you do that, you have a chance. And I don't think it'd probably be pretty tough to go undefeated. We got a lot of good football teams, and so somebody to run the table this year, they're gonna really have to have a good football team and have to stay healthy, and then get the ball to bounce their way a couple of times, because this league is very balanced and it's very good from the coaching standpoint and players. And so to you will think and want to say you're going to go undefeated and want to do that, but it's going to be very tough to do, I think, in my opinion.
Coach Maynor, last week you had another receiver step up in Ronald Bell. Just talk about his play and how does that help the offense as he continued with Alden Fields to have a potent 1-2 punch.
Yeah, Ronald had a nice day. I think he had 13 catches. I didn't even realize it until the next day. I was like, 13 catches, man, that's crazy. And I told the players on Sunday, Ronald Bell had 13 catches, 100-something yards, and we did want our little chance for him. But I told him, guess what? We need him to have 14. And we had a couple guys with 12 tackles. We need them to have 13 tackles. It ain't about the stat. The only stat that matters is the W, and we didn't get it. So that was good for him individually, but as a team, our goal is to win football games, and I told him and them, we need him to have 14 or 15 for us to get that W. And it wasn't a great individual performance, but we're more focused on the team winning the game.
And speaking of, last week we discussed non-conference, the play of non-conference teams and what you would need to do in order to defeat them. Coming out against Monmouth, how do you feel about your team, especially when you talk about competing against non-conference opponents?
Well, we competed. We competed very well, and our team was just as good as theirs. They were a little bit better than us on Saturday. They made one more play than we did, and we're not making any excuses. They beat us fair and square, and we had 60 minutes to prove we was better than them, and we didn't do it. We had our opportunities. We didn't take advantage of them. That's why you practice and try to get better and learn from those mistakes so you won't do it again. And hopefully our guys learn from their mistakes late in that football game and during that football game, and we get them corrected and not make them again where it costs us a football game.
Coach, I think we have one more question for you from Dave Johnson.
Okay.
Hey, Connell, just following up Ryan's earlier question about Ronald. I think, if I remember correctly, you only had one other guy with a reception, so it was like 2 total. I'm sure you'd probably like to see it spread out a little more. And were they doing stuff to take Alden away?
A little bit, but we don't determine who we're gonna throw to. We call the play, and the quarterback got to read the defense, and it's all predicated on what the defense does. And when they do one thing, we're gonna look to the other side of the field and make it read there. If they don't do a certain thing, we'll make the read to the side that we're originally playing. So, but I said it before, we got some young, talented wide receivers that can make some plays. They just hadn't had the opportunity because we had such great receivers the last couple of years. So now these guys, time to step up and make plays, and they showing that they got the same type potential to go for 1,000 yards as our previous 2 receivers did in the past. So, and I wanted to, bring those guys along these first 4 games and kind of lean on the defense and the running game while we got those guys ready. And I think with this open week coming up, to really continue to get better, we're right where we want to be with getting this offense going, and then that defense to stay strong.
Our next call takes us to Orangeburg, South Carolina, as we welcome in head coach Buddy Pough of South Carolina State. The Bulldogs fell to North Carolina Central this past Thursday and returned home to host North Carolina A&T State on Saturday evening. Good morning, Coach.
Hey, Ryan. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good.
Coach, recap last week's game in North Carolina Central, and what positives can you take away from the contest after watching it on film?
Well, we had our chances, and it was one of those kind of games where it played its way out all the way through to the end. You get excited about being all hyped for games, and you go out and you knock each other around for about 2 or 3 minutes, and you got 57 minutes left yet to play. So this game was one where as it played out, it was back and forth, and we gave away some opportunities, and gave them some opportunities that they took advantage of. We got the ball down early in the game, had a pitch sort of picked off in the air. Their kid, ran it back for a score. We had another couple opportunities there where we got ahead, I think maybe 21-14 and 21-7, and then toward the end of the half we had a situation where we had a late hit out of bounds and gave them another opportunity. They eventually hit us on a deep ball, and we go into the half leading 21-14. They come back out and get a couple scores. We go back and forth. We get a score. They eventually get ahead at the very, I guess maybe end of the game, and they get going to win the game 33-28.
Can you just talk about the play of your offense specifically in terms of when, at times, when their back was against the wall, they did come out and put themselves in position for you to come out on top?
Well, offensively, we got ahead in the football game, and generally here when we get that kind of lead, we generally in pretty good shape, and it was a situation where we didn't feel good about the fact that we couldn't close the game out. We did have some success offensively, but at the same time, we didn't have nearly enough in the second half, and because of that, they were able to catch us and pass us.
And this week, North Carolina A&T comes to town, and traditionally, that's going to be a hard-fought, tough football game. Just talk about the Aggies from what you've seen.
You're exactly right. That's generally a tough game for us. We've lost to them, I guess, maybe 2 years in a row now, and Coach Broadway and his bunch have, I think maybe about as strong a program going in this league as we've had, in some time. They're undefeated. They play extremely well in all 3 phases of the game. They kick the ball well. On defense, they might be, as intimidating and as aggressive, as anybody we've seen in a while. And they got a big play effect on offense that, might be second to none. They've got guys that statistically are, tops in our league in so many different spots. They've got, wide receivers all over the place that can run and jump and catch. They've got running backs, that can, do some pretty fantastic things. Guys who, who carry the football in a violent manner. They've got their quarterback is a seasoned veteran now who's starting to play in a way that that's kind of a cut above what's usually customary, in these parts. So, they got all the ingredients to be a top-notch football team. I think I voted them the last couple of weeks in the top 10 in my polls, in my FCS polls, and number 1 in the Sheridan poll, the Box to Row poll. So, they're pretty much the real deal, and it'll be interesting to see what we can do here. This is the first week that we've had a regular week of practice since the beginning of our season, with all the hurricanes and the missed games and all that kind of stuff. We went 2 days of practice before Bethune, then we had to come back and go 3 days of practice before. before North Carolina Central. So we do have a full week of preparation this week. It will be interesting to see just how our team reacts after having gone through, a regular week of preparation.
Coach, talk about your defense. Once again, I know you mentioned the second half stretch, but just talk about their performance and putting you in position to be there in the second half, before what the things that took place in the fourth quarter.
Well, defensively, we always feel like, we ought to be a cut above. That's just the tradition and the style of our play here. But we hadn't played great up to this point, and hopefully, we'll run into shape and play better this week.
And you also had, we'll go back to DeJuan Ford, had some good plays, and obviously he's basically your running threat and your passing threat. Can you talk about what he has to do in order to keep the offense going until your running game gets to where you traditionally want it?
I guess you hit the nail right on the head there. He needs to continue to develop and to be able to be a double-A sword of sorts. He needs to continue to be a guy who can run an offense, who can throw it around a little bit, and who has led us in rushing, here a time or two. We need to figure out how to get, our young running back core going. We don't seem to have much of a big play style kind of ability. We are methodical in our approach to things in a way where, we give ourselves a lot of opportunities to kind of to mess it up a little bit. So we got to find our way, to being able to, create more big chunks of yardage or something, because, it's kind of a tough deal trying to do it the way we're doing it at this point.
And there was on defense, there was a name that popped up last week, a guy named Tyrell Goodwin, had a strong performance. Talk about him and what does he add to your defense, obviously, when he complements Darius and Deshaun Taylor?
Well, Tyrell's a young inside player on the defensive front that's, who's really coming along in a way that, we can depend on him to hold his own. Our defensive front in general, those inside guys in particular are all freshmen, redshirt freshmen and sophomores. And, those guys are coming on in a way where, they can not only play, kind of tough against the run, but they run pretty good too, so they can move around a little bit. The game has gotten so now where, they spread out so much until defensive linemen now have to be maybe, better conditioned and, and have a little bit better, athleticism than they did back, some time ago. So, he kind of fits that mold. He's not a great big old guy, but, he's a guy, who's a, hard worker in the weight room. He's a hard worker, out on the field trying to, create the agility and speed that, that you need to be able to make the plays in the spread style kinds of offenses that we see today.
And lastly, you have the Aggies come to town, and like we talked about earlier, it's going to be a tough game historically. For your team, is this a must-win situation because you played obviously two of the top teams coming in so far, and what do they need to do in order to understand that this is it in terms of trying to place yourself in position for the MEAC race?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a must-win, for us. But, needing to win and having the ability to win are not necessarily the same things. A&T is a class outfit. They might be, as well-rounded football team as there is. We'll need to, play pretty close to a perfect game to be able to, to hang in there with these guys. And even at that point, it might not be enough. But, we do think that we've got, a chance to get in there and hang in there with these guys. And if we do, can kind of hang around, maybe kind of steal one at the end.
We will now head to Greensboro, North Carolina, as North Carolina A&T State head coach Rod Broadway joins us this morning. The Aggies are coming off a win over Morgan State last week and will hit the road once again as they head to South Carolina State on Saturday evening. Good morning, Coach. How you doing?
I'm good, Ron, and I hope you are.
Yes, sir, I am. Last week, just talk about the game at Morgan State and in terms of how you took control early and then allowed you to play some guys who normally didn't play early in the year.
Well, we hit a couple plays there early. I think maybe second play of the game. Running back takes 170-something yards, and we felt going into the game if we could get past the first wave of defenders that we would have a chance of making some big plays in the running game. It's just simply because of the way that they play. And, we were able to get him on the second level, and he was able to make some heck of a runs and took the ball home. And, we got out to a pretty good lead. Then we settled in and played some guys, the second half of, 5 minutes left in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. We sort of got out of rhythm because we put a lot of guys in the ball game and didn't look quite the same, but gave some guys an opportunity to play quite a bit.
Well, this week you're back on the road, and traditionally we all know South Carolina State is going to be a tough opponent. Just talk about what you've seen from them on tape and what is the biggest thing you have to prepare for heading into Saturday's game.
I think, number one, it's always a physical game. I think South Carolina gets after you as good as anybody, and this year is no different. I think their front is really good, and, of course, they got the best defensive player in the conference at linebacker, and the secondary is good. So I think they're pretty good on all three levels, up front, middle, and the back end. So we just got to try to match them as far as being physical and try to play fast, and hopefully don't make too many mistakes and give ourselves an opportunity to win the ball game.
And against South Carolina State, defensively up front, like you said, they're strong. But you had two running backs last week coming off big games. Cartwright had 170-plus yards, and his backup, Jamari Smith, almost had 100 yards. So talk about what you will need from those two in order to be successful this weekend.
Well, it's a different ball game this week than last week because South Carolina State got some men up front that can play. And I think the lanes are going to be a lot tighter, and we've got to be able to get a head on the head and try to create some movement. But I think they're really good defensively. And we've just got to make a couple plays, here and there, and try to get them off guard a little bit and run them a little bit. And let's just see what happens.
Thank you, Coach. We'll now open up the call for questions from the media.
Please press 1-4 to queue up for a question. We have a question from the line of Kevin Jones, Howard University. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Broadway, it's Trevin. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good. You guys got another big win.
We're trying, Coach. Definitely trying. Hey, Coach, and I've always been intrigued for the past, I would say, 3 years, maybe 4. Big Brandon Parker. Talk about his development and how impressed you are with his play. I know you don't like to single out players at this time of the year, but I'm just interested to get your insight and input on his performances so far this season.
Oh, he's good. He's the best offensive lineman that I've had since I've been coaching, and he just gets better and better every week. He's a 6'7", 310-pounder that can bend his hip, move his feet. He can really dig them out. Got an excellent punch as far as pass set and drop is concerned, and he's flexible. So he has a huge upside, and he's an outstanding player for us.
And if I could, I know you and Coach Pough have faced each other throughout the years in the MEAC, so you're you're familiar with each other's attacks and game plans. Anything that you think he might try to sneak past you in this upcoming contest?
I tell you, no. We're too old for that. I think both of us are old school. We just want to go out and play and, do what we do and have a good, physical, hard-fought, clean football game. But there's not going to be a surprise from our end.
Okay. I can appreciate that, Coach. Good luck to you this weekend. Thanks for talking to me.
All right, thank you.
Broadway on defense last week. Obviously, everyone knows what your freshman did with the 3 interceptions and the 2 for touchdown. But can you talk about other people who might have stood out on defense in addition to what Mack done?
Yeah, that was pretty good ball game from the freshman, and 3 interceptions, 2 for touchdown, 100 yards, and that's 3 touchdowns he's scored in the last 2 weeks, which is unheard of. You get guys go through a career don't do that, and he's had 2 beautiful weeks here. But we had a number of guys I thought played really well in spots. I thought our front to be, without 3 of our people hung in there pretty good and continued to maintain gap control. And I thought linebackers did a decent job of filling and fitting this week. By the week before, we hit some wrong gaps or didn't fill or didn't fit. We was dropping when they were running the ball, and we was attacking the line of scrimmage when they was passing the ball. But I thought this week our reads and our keys were a lot better from our linebacker. Richardson, I thought, played much better. Deion Jones, I thought, played much better. And then our secondary, I thought, did a better job than what they did the week before.
And then from South Carolina State's perspective, on offense, what would they have to do in order to stop the Bulldogs from having offensive success based on they've pretty much have grown over the past few games?
Well, number one, we've got to limit the quarterback plays that he makes, whether it's with his feet or throwing the ball, because he can hurt you. And we got to eliminate the plays that he's making, and we got to contain him somewhat. But we got to be willing to get our nose blooded, because it's going to be a physical football game. Every year we play South Carolina State, they're dragging them off left and right. I remember down in Atlanta a few years ago, man, it was like every other whistle somebody getting drug off the field. And that's the type of game that we've gotten to when we play those guys. And, Buddy always has his guys ready. They always play well. So it's going to be a challenge, man. It's a heck of a challenge. And, I have to give my hats off to what Buddy's been able to do the last 14, 15 years and the type of program that he's run. And every week, you play South Carolina State, you got to play.
And lastly, Coach, you're back on the bus again. Just talk about having your team mentally prepared for another road trip in an environment where obviously everyone's cheering for the opposite team.
Well, that's just how it unfolds sometimes. This is our 3rd week in a row being on the road. 4 out of the last 5 weeks we've been on the road, so eventually it'll bounce out and we'll have some home games. But we're looking forward to going to Orangeburg. It's not that long of a drive, probably 3.5 hours, which is a lot shorter than the trip up to Morgan last week. We got caught in the traffic, and we turned that into a 9-hour trip, which was brutal. And, you get back home at 5:30 in the morning coming back. So we're looking forward to getting on the bus and going 3.5 hours, get a couple movies, relax, and enjoy the scenery on the way to beautiful South Carolina.
We will close out this morning's teleconference with our final head coach in North Carolina Central's, Jerry Mack. Eagles will play their 2nd consecutive Thursday night contest. They'll travel to Tallahassee to face off against the Rattlers of Florida A&M live on ESPNU at 7:30 p.m. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Ryan.
Coach, how you doing? And just talk about last week's game as you had a comeback performance.
I thought it was a hard-fought game, to be honest with you. I think our kids showed a lot of character. We were able to battle from behind, overcome some adversity throughout the course of the game. One of those situations, we knew going into the football game, South Carolina State was a really good football team, probably one of the best defenses we're going to see all year long. And Coach Pough always has those guys ready to perform at a high level. So it was our first challenge in conference against a legitimate contender in the conference. So, we were excited, happy to come out on the winning side of that stick more than anything.
And speaking of the contest, like you said, you faced some adversity early on, but you overcame it and found a way to win. Talk about the mindset that's in your program, meaning that the game is not over until the clock hits 0.
Well, we know we got off to a really fast start. That's why we always talk about playing 4 quarters and being a 4-quarter football team, being able to do things like that. We end up getting a defensive touchdown early in the game. The momentum was really high.
the spirits were high, the atmosphere was electric. So I think everybody was really in tune. And then South Carolina State did a great job of being on the road and overcoming that kind of stuff. They just continued to play football, and I feel like they won the second quarter. I say we won the first quarter, they won the second quarter, and we're going into the half. We're down by a touchdown, and we just continue to preach to our guys about we got 30 more minutes of football to play. We knew they were a good football team. We know they're a good football team, but that's the reason we put 30 more minutes on the clock, and we just kept chipping away at that lead. We got a chance. We ended up having to play 3 different quarterbacks in the course of the football game, and no matter what quarterback came in and performed, each one of them had their own success and performed at a high level. So, just to do things like that this early in the season, for guys to understand that no matter what happens, if you're up by 21 or you're down by 21, as long as there's time on the clock, we always feel like we got an opportunity to win the game.
And a turning point I've noticed when I was looking at the game was the third quarter. Aiden Johnson, the announcers mentioned his field goal, the length of his field goal, and that gave you 6 points, which was you really needed, which paved the way for the fourth quarter touchdown. Talk about how did his points help propel the team to success in the fourth quarter?
Oh, that was huge. Our offense did a good job of matriculating the ball down the field. We stayed the course, and we put Aiden in a position where we were right around his range. And, at the end of the day, though, he has to knock him down. We've just seen him get better and better over the course of time of the last few weeks. He had some struggles in camp a little bit, but he just gained more and more confidence, in and out, and just going through the process. So, really, really excited about his future and his development right now.
Coach, on defense last week, your leading tackler was Kenneth O'Neal, and he's been on your roster for a few years. But talk about him finally ascending to the level you probably wanted to play at a few years ago.
Tank is a guy we signed our second year here, and he's just been a guy that's been in the system, and he's continually got better and better over the course of time. He had some ups and downs last year, was predominantly a special teams player, but then this year, playing that wheel linebacker position, he's been hearing the same thing for the last 3 years, and he's really been a good student of the game, and now he's matured some. He's a senior leader on schedule to graduate. And just to see him kind of come into his own now and really understand what we've been trying to teach to him for the last few years, it's just really great, to see him beside Reggie Hunter. And you got 2 guys that are very dependable at that linebacker position.
And speaking of Reggie Hunter, he had a solid game, especially in the second half. Just talk about his play, as his play on defense pretty much elevated the offensive play, because he was all over the place in the second half.
No doubt. He's just an energy guy. When you look at what Reggie's been able to do, we always talk about him being a testament to what our program is built off of. He's a guy that came in, a blue-collar guy that came in as a walk-on, earned a scholarship, and now is transformed into one of the premier players in all of HBCU football. And then not only that, some of the things that get overlooked, Reggie started off at his career really as a really special teams demon. And he was able to go down there on kickoff team in that game against South Carolina State, and he did the same things he did when he was a freshman and sophomore. He was an animal going down there, making plays, and the field position battle was really where I think the game was won in the second half. We talked about that going into the game. We was going to have to win the field position battle, and then when it came down to crunch time, those last 30 minutes of the game, I think they started at their average starting field position was in the negative part of the field, deep in their own territory quite a bit. So he was a big reason for that, not only as a kickoff guy, but also some of the things he was able to do on the defense side of the ball.
And back to the offensive side, I know people always laugh when you say next man up, but in this case, it was next man up in your passing game, as Michael started, Caldwell came in and had some success, but then Naileel Ramadan closed it out at one point. So just talk about having 3 capable quarterbacks who can step in any situation throughout the game.
Yeah, I think that's just a testament to our coaching staff, to be honest with you. I think Coach T.C. Taylor has done an excellent job with developing the quarterback position. I think you saw a little bit on last Thursday night that, all those guys are capable quarterbacks, and all of them can play. That They're guys that come in, they've been developed, they've been coached extremely well. And when they get the opportunity, we feel good about them guys going in there and execute the game plan. They all got similar skill sets. Obviously, some maybe perform a little bit better than others at times. But, you know, in order to win in college football now, you're going to have 2 or 3 guys that you feel comfortable with to go out there and execute. If not, it's just going to be tough to win football games. The reality is to ask a guy to take every single snap during the course of the season at the quarterback position is probably unrealistic. So you have to do a great job of developing the guys that you put on scholarship and you bring into the program.
And talk about having another Thursday night game. This time it's on the road, but it's against a Florida A&M team that's coming off an emotional win, and what you have to do in order to be successful against them.
We got to do a great job of protecting the football and trying to limit some of the explosive plays. You know, Brian Stanley, the quarterback at FAMU, probably one of the up-and-coming quarterbacks in this conference. You know, has extremely talented arm talent. You know, they did a good job of running the football last week against Savannah State. And then, you know, you just see wideouts all over the field that's capable of making plays. On one week it's Brandon Norwood, and then the next week it's Travis Murphy or another player. So they have more than capable talent on the perimeter. And the trigger man back there is just getting better and better with the more reps he takes. So we got our hands full to try to make sure that, you know, we don't allow them guys to explode on us, you know, and defensively, those guys just keep getting better and better. You know, held Savannah State to, I think, 14 points. So, we just got to do a great job of trying to get our young team going in the right direction and playing at a high level.
And is there any difference to preparing from a Thursday to Thursday as opposed to a Saturday to Thursday, or is just as long as you got the same amount of days, the preparation is the same?
Yes, as long as you got the same amount of days, it's all the same. You know, some things that we would normally do on a Friday or Saturday obviously changed up, but it's still 7 to 7 days. We just, you know, the Mondays become, a Friday, or Tuesdays become Saturdays and things like that. And we were really used to it because we tried to implement that going into the week last week. So basically it's the same kind of practice routine that we had last week going into the South Carolina State game.